Professor Xylith adjusted his gravity compensator as he descended from the transport ship onto Earth's surface. His crystalline form sparkled in the morning sunlight, facets refracting light in ways that would have been beautiful to anyone who appreciated such things. He did not. Another backwater assignment, he transmitted telepathically to no one in particular, his crystalline matrix vibrating with disdain. The gleaming spires of the unified Earth Academy rose before him, their architecture an attempt to blend human and alien design principles. To Xylith, it looked like a child's drawing next to the pure geometric perfection of his homeworld structures. Headmaster Chen waited at the entrance, her dark eyes sharp and calculating despite her welcoming smile. Professor Xylith, welcome to Earth. We're honored to have a crystalline physicist of your renown joining our faculty. Indeed, Xylith responded, his matrix frequencies conveying barely concealed condescension. Though I must question the Council's wisdom in assigning me here. Surely teaching human children basic quantum mechanics is, beneath someone of my capabilities. You might be surprised, Chen replied, her smile unwavering. Our students consistently rank among the top performers in interstellar academic competitions. Xylith's crystalline structure vibrated in what passed for laughter among his kind. Headmaster, I've lectured at the Crystalline Institute of Higher Dimensions. I've published theories that revolutionized our understanding of quantum crystal matrices. And now you expect me to believe that human children, whose species has barely mastered basic interstellar travel, could grasp even the fundamentals of advanced physics. A group of students rushed past them toward their first class. One of them, a girl with strange metallic implants visible along her temples, actually waved at him. Waved. As if he were some common educator rather than one of the most brilliant minds in known space. Your advanced placement class begins tomorrow morning, Chen said, choosing to ignore his obvious disdain. I believe you'll find it illuminating. Illuminating? Xylith's entire structure pulsed with skepticism. I seriously doubt that, Headmaster. I seriously doubt that. As he followed Chen toward his new office, Xylith began composing his first lecture. He would show these humans, these children, exactly what real scientific rigor looked like. By the end of his first class, they would understand the vast intellectual gulf that separated their species. It would be a valuable lesson for them, he thought, his crystalline matrix humming with satisfaction. Yes, a very valuable lesson indeed. The next morning, Xylith entered the classroom, his crystalline form perfectly aligned to project maximum authority. The advanced physics classroom was arranged in traditional amphitheater style, with 20 students scattered throughout the seats. 10 humans, 10 aliens would have been manageable, but 20 humans? This was beyond insulting. Attention, he transmitted, his matrix vibrations automatically converted to sound waves by the classroom's translation system. I am Professor Xylith, and I will be elevating your presumably modest understanding of quantum physics to something approaching adequacy. A human girl in the front row raised her hand immediately, the metallic implants at her temples glinting. Her dark eyes sparked with an intelligence that Xylith found immediately suspicious. Professor, I'm Sarah Zhang. I've studied your work on crystalline quantum matrices. Your theories about multidimensional lattice vibrations are fascinating. Xylith's structure flickered in surprise. How had this child even accessed his research, let alone understood it? Yes, well, he recovered quickly, clearly you've missed the underlying principles, as that was merely the introductory section. From the back of the room, a boy with dark skin and a quick smile leaned forward. Actually, sir, Marcus Chen here, Sarah and I were discussing your theories during study group. We thought your conclusions about crystal resonance could have applications for human neural interface technology. This was not proceeding according to plan. These humans were supposed to be primitive, simple. Yet here they were, discussing his advanced theories as if. No, they must simply be parroting words they'd heard somewhere. Time to show them what real physics looked like. Your semester project, he announced, his matrix pulsing with anticipation, worth 90% of your grade, begins today. He projected a holographic model into the center of the room. You will create a functioning quantum computer using only Earth-based materials. It must maintain quantum coherence at room temperature while performing at least basic fifth-dimensional calculations. The human students should have been intimidated, overwhelmed. Instead, Sarah was already scribbling in her notebook, the implants at her temples glowing faintly. Marcus had pulled out a tablet and was sketching something that looked suspiciously like a viable design schematic. "Professor," Sarah looked up, her eyes shining with that strange human emotion they called excitement, "can we work in teams?" "If you must," Xylith transmitted dismissively, "though I doubt collaboration will help with a project of this complexity." "Excellent," Marcus grinned, already moving to sit beside Sarah, "because I think we just figured out how to use quantum-entangled biological systems as a processing matrix." Xylith's entire crystalline structure vibrated with disbelief. This was not how this was supposed to go. Not at all. But as he watched the humans begin their work, their faces bright with determination and joy, he couldn't quite shake the feeling that he might have miscalculated something important. Very important indeed. 2 weeks into the project, Professor Xylith found himself doing something utterly beneath his dignity, lurking in the shadows of the school's quantum physics lab, watching his students with an intensity that made his crystalline structure vibrate at uncomfortable frequencies. Most teams were progressing exactly as expected. The Andromedans were building conventional quantum processors. The energy beings from Sirius were following standard methodologies. Everything proceeded according to established scientific principles. Except. The plants are singing again. Sarah's excited voice carried across the lab. Xylith's entire structure nearly shattered in horror as he watched the human girl practically bouncing with excitement over what appeared to be a terrarium. "That's because they're happy," Marcus adjusted something on his tablet, and the network of bioluminescent vines pulsed with impossible patterns. "Look at these quantum entanglement readings. They're actually communicating across dimensional barriers." "Impossible," Xylith muttered, moving closer despite himself. The two humans had transformed their workstation into something that looked more like an Earth rainforest than a proper laboratory. Various plant species were connected in intricate patterns, their leaves and vines glowing with an inner light that defied known physics. "Oh, hello, Professor." Sarah beamed at him, completely oblivious to his academic distress. "We've made a breakthrough. Want to see?" Before he could refuse, Marcus activated their monitoring system. The plant network pulsed in a complex sequence, and suddenly a holographic display appeared above it, showing quantum calculations that made Xylith's crystalline matrix vibrate in disbelief. "The plants are acting as a biological quantum computer," Sarah explained, her implants glowing with excitement. "Earth's rainforest species already communicate through vast networks, sharing resources and information. We just helped them expand into a few more dimensions." "A few more dimensions?" Xylith's transmission frequencies reached a pitch that made several beakers resonate. "That's not, you can't just, plants don't." "But they do," Marcus pulled up another display. "See, plants are already amazing at finding efficient paths through three-dimensional space. Sarah figured out that if we introduce certain quantum resonance frequencies, they naturally extend those pathways into higher dimensions." Across the lab, other students had stopped their work to watch. The Andromedans' perfectly constructed quantum processors suddenly looked rigid and unimaginative compared to the living, breathing computer growing on the human's workbench. "And the best part," Sarah continued, her implants pulsing in sync with the plants, "is that they're self-replicating and self-repairing. We're calling it the biological quantum matrix, or BQM for short." Xylith found himself doing something unprecedented in his centuries of teaching. He sat down, his crystalline structure making an alarming chiming sound as it contacted the laboratory stool. "Would you like to see the calculations?" Marcus offered his tablet, but Xylith waved it away. The equations floating above the plant network were clear enough, and distressingly correct. But this is just the beginning. Sarah was practically glowing now. We've been communicating with the plants. Communicating with the plants. Xylitha's matrix began flashing in emergency patterns. Well, through quantum vibrations, Marcus clarified, as if that made it any better. And they've shown us some really interesting possibilities for expanding the network. We think we might be able to create a planetary-scale quantum computing system using existing forest networks. The other students had gathered around now, their various sensory organs fixed on the pulsing plant display. The Andromedans were emitting frequencies indicating extreme scientific distress. The Syrians had dimmed to nearly invisible, a sign of profound shock. This is not proper scientific methodology. Xylith finally managed to transmit. You can't just make friends with plants and expect them to violate the laws of physics. Sarah and Marcus exchanged one of those mysterious human looks that always made Xylitha's matrix misalign. But Professor, Sarah said gently, we're not violating any laws. We're just introducing them to new possibilities. The plants are doing all the hard work themselves. Yeah, Marcus grinned, patting the edge of their living computer. Turns out they're really eager to learn. Who knew plants would be such good students? Professor Xylith fled the laboratory, his crystalline form chiming in distress with each step. He needed to recalibrate. Yes, that was it. A nice long session of perfect geometric alignment, perhaps with some light quantum equations to soothe his matrix. But even as he hurried down the corridor, he couldn't escape Sarah's voice floating after him. Do you think we should tell him about the plant's ideas for faster-than-light travel? The day of final presentations arrived with all the gravity of a collapsing neutron star. Professor Xylith positioned himself at the front of the packed auditorium, his crystalline structure arranged in perfect academic symmetry. News of the project had spread throughout the school, drawing curious faculty and students from every department. First presentation, Xylith transmitted, his matrix vibrating with relief. The Andromedans and their conventional quantum processor. The Andromedans' presentation was flawless, naturally. Their quantum computer, built using traditional methodologies, performed exactly as expected. The audience nodded appreciatively. This was proper science, predictable, controlled, and entirely within established parameters. The Syrians followed with their energy-based quantum system. Another excellent example of conventional thinking. Xylitha's structure pulsed with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as it should. Which meant next. Sarah Zhang and Marcus Chen, Xylith announced, his matrix already beginning to vibrate with anxiety. The two humans wheeled in what appeared to be a small jungle. Bioluminescent plants pulsed in complex patterns, their leaves and vines weaving through multiple dimensions. The room immediately filled with murmurs of astonishment. Thank you, everyone, Sarah's voice carried clearly through the auditorium. What you're seeing is the BQM, Biological Quantum Matrix, version 3.0. Version 3.0. Xylitha's entire structure flickered in alarm. What happened to versions 1 and 2? Oh, they evolved past our original parameters, Marcus said casually, as if discussing the weather. They're currently exploring the 9th dimension, but they still send us messages. Well, quantum messages. Xylitha's matrix began to emit emergency harmonics. The humans had clearly lost their minds. This would be the academic embarrassment of the century. He could already feel his reputation crystallizing into dust. For our demonstration, Sarah continued cheerfully, her implants glowing bright with excitement, we asked our plant friends to solve a few simple problems. Marcus activated their system, and suddenly the air above the terrarium filled with holographic displays. First, let's solve the Riemann hypothesis. The plants pulsed, their network lighting up like a terrestrial aurora. Numbers and equations flowed through the air, twisting through multiple dimensions. The audience gasped. Xylitha's structure went completely transparent. Next, Sarah announced, a real-time simulation of protein folding in 6 dimensions. More lights, more impossible calculations. The Andromedans were vibrating at frequencies indicating extreme mathematical distress. The Sirians had dimmed to near invisibility. And for our finale, Marcus grinned, the plants would like to perform a symphony composed in quantum harmonics. They've been practicing. Before Xylith could protest that this had nothing to do with the assignment, the room filled with music. But calling it music was like calling a supernova a warm day. Mathematical harmonies wove through multiple dimensions, creating patterns of sound and light that made perfect, beautiful, impossible sense. This is unprecedented, Headmaster Chen's voice cut through the symphony. She had appeared at some point, along with what appeared to be half the faculty and several representatives from the Interstellar Science Council. And the best part, Sarah beamed, her implants pulsing in sync with the plants, is that they're teaching us as much as we're teaching them. They understand quantum mechanics intuitively, they've been doing this for millions of years, just not quite so, deliberately. Professor Xylith found himself experiencing several impossible emotions simultaneously. His primary matrix insisted this violated every known principle of proper scientific advancement. His secondary matrix frantically calculated the mathematical implications. And his tertiary matrix was actually enjoying the quantum symphony. There are already plant networks all over Earth, Marcus explained as the music wrapped them in quantum harmonies. With a few adjustments, we could create a planetary quantum computing system that would be self-maintaining, self-evolving, and really good at solving complex problems. This is not about solving problems, Xylith managed to transmit. This is serious science. This is. He waved his crystalline appendages helplessly at the display. This is. Revolutionary, suggested Chen. Brilliant, offered the Andromedans, their matrices shimming with newfound respect. Beautiful, the Sirians pulsed, finally visible again. Impossible, Xylith finished weakly. Completely impossible. And yet, he stared at the pulsing plant network, at the equations that danced through dimensions as naturally as light through crystal, at the faces of his human students showing that peculiar mixture of pride and humility he had never understood until now. Professor, Sarah said gently, her implants glowing softly, would you like to talk to them? The plants have been hoping to discuss some theories about transdimensional physics with you. They're particularly interested in your work on crystalline matrices. 1 month after the presentation, the Unified Earth Academy's quantum lab had transformed into something unprecedented. The plant network had expanded to fill an entire greenhouse, its bioluminescent tendrils weaving through multiple dimensions in ways that made traditional physics textbooks obsolete. Professor Xylith stood among the growing quantum garden, his crystalline structure humming in harmony with the plant's mathematical songs. Sarah and Marcus worked nearby, their casual brilliance still unsettling him, though now in a different way. The Antarctic network just came online, Sarah announced, her neural implants flickering as data streamed through them. That's the 7th major node. The plants are already establishing quantum connections with the Amazon hub. Efficiency is at 400% above projected levels, Marcus added, monitoring the streams of multidimensional data. They're not just computing, they're optimizing the entire planet's ecological systems while they work. Xylith watched as impossible calculations bloomed like flowers across their displays. A year ago, he would have declared this a violation of fundamental physical laws. Now, he found himself questioning what fundamental truly meant. Professor, Sarah called out, the network wants to show you something. The plants pulsed in complex patterns, and suddenly the greenhouse filled with a holographic display of the universe unlike anything Xylith had ever seen. It showed connections, possibilities, and pathways that his crystalline mind struggled to comprehend. They've been studying your work on crystalline quantum matrices, Marcus explained. They think they've found a way to integrate organic and crystalline computing systems. Something about resonance patterns across biological and mineral structures. Xylith's structure vibrated with sudden understanding. The crystalline lattices, they could act as amplifiers for the plant network's quantum fields. But that would mean every crystal on Earth could become part of the computing system, Sarah finished, her implants glowing brightly. And not just Earth. The plants have been communicating with similar networks on other worlds. Other worlds? Xylitha's matrix pulsed with shock. That's not possible. We would have detected. Only if we were looking the right way, Marcus said. Life finds paths we never imagined. The plants showed us that quantum entanglement isn't just about particles, it's about patterns, relationships, the fundamental interconnectedness of living systems. A delegation from the Interstellar Science Council materialized in the greenhouse, their varied forms registering different degrees of astonishment at the living computer surrounding them. Is it true? The Council's chief scientist demanded. Have you actually achieved planet-wide quantum coherence using plants? Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. Would you like a demonstration? Sarah asked. The plants dimmed briefly, then erupted in a cascade of light and mathematics. The greenhouse filled with solutions to problems that had puzzled scientists for millennia. Theories of everything bloomed like spring flowers. The mysteries of dark matter and dark energy unfolded in patterns of leaves and light. Impossible, the chief scientist whispered. That word, Xylith found himself transmitting, doesn't mean what we thought it meant. The plants want to show you something else, Marcus said. They've been working on it for a while now. The network pulsed again, and this time the holographic display showed something that made even Xylitha's carefully ordered crystal matrix tremble with excitement. It was a design for a new type of spacecraft, one that used principles of both organic and crystalline computing to fold space in ways that made traditional faster-than-light travel look primitive. They call it seed shipping, Sarah explained. Each ship grows itself as it travels, adapting to conditions, learning, evolving. They think we could reach Andromeda in weeks instead of millions of years. The council members buzzed and pulsed with excitement. Xylith watched his former students, no, his colleagues now, as they explained concepts that would revolutionize science across the galaxy. Their faces shone with that uniquely human combination of wonder and determination that he had once dismissed as primitive emotion. He had been so wrong about so many things. 5 years later, Professor Xylith stood before the graduating class of the Unified Earth Academy, his crystalline structure gleaming with pride. The auditorium was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all gathered to witness something unprecedented. Sarah Zhang and Marcus Chen stood at the podium, their revolutionary thesis defense about to begin. The entire room was alive with quantum computations. Plants growing along the walls performed complex calculations, their patterns harmonizing with crystalline structures that amplified their signals across dimensions. When I first arrived at this academy, Xylith transmitted, his matrix vibrating with emotion he no longer tried to suppress, I believed I was here to teach. Instead, I learned the greatest lesson of my scientific career, that innovation knows no species, that brilliance wears many forms, and that sometimes the most profound discoveries come from seeing the universe through new eyes. The plant network pulsed in agreement, sending ripples of quantum harmony through the audience. In the years since that first impossible project, the human-plant partnership had transformed science across the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds had established their own biological quantum networks, each adding its unique perspective to a growing universal consciousness. Sarah stepped forward, her neural implants now far more sophisticated than they had been in her student days. Today, we're not just presenting a thesis. We're introducing the next step in cosmic evolution, the integration of all sentient networks, organic and crystalline, into what we call the Living Universe Protocol. Marcus activated their demonstration, and the auditorium transformed. The walls seemed to disappear as reality itself blossomed around them. They could see the quantum connections between stars, the living mathematics of galaxy clusters, the songs of black holes expressed in patterns of light and life. Every crystal, every plant, every conscious being adds its voice to the symphony, Sarah explained. We're not just observing the universe anymore, were participating in its ongoing creation. Xylith watched as his former students showed the assembled scientists how consciousness itself could ripple across dimensional barriers, how thought could shape reality through the careful application of quantum biological principles. The theories he had once considered immutable now seemed like children's drawings compared to the masterpiece unfolding before him. A small potted plant on the podium, a descendant of their first experimental quantum computer, solved a complex 11-dimensional equation while composing a melody that made several crystalline beings in the audience resonate with pure joy. "The plants have a message for you, Professor," Marcus said softly. The network pulsed, and Xylith received a transmission that made his entire structure shine with emotion. In quantum harmonics, the plants expressed gratitude, not for teaching them, but for learning to listen. As the presentation concluded, Sarah and Marcus unveiled their final project, a seed ship, ready to carry humanity's first joint organic crystalline exploration team beyond the galaxy's edge. Its hull was alive, a hybrid of Earth plants and crystalline matrices that could think, grow, and navigate through quantum dimensions. "So, Professor," Sarah asked, her eyes twinkling, "would you like to join the crew? The plants say there's a whole universe of impossible things waiting to be discovered." Xylith looked at his former students, at the living ship, at the quantum network that connected them all in ways he once would have denied could exist. His crystalline structure rang with laughter, real laughter, full of joy and wonder and anticipation of adventures to come. "My dear colleagues," he transmitted warmly, "I believe impossible is just another word for something we haven't grown into yet." And somewhere in the quantum harmonics of the universe, countless plants pulsed in agreement, their mathematics singing of discoveries yet to come, of barriers yet to break, of impossible dreams waiting to bloom among the stars.